Hi, and welcome to Alumni Now. I'm Sam Sonnenstrahl, Executive Director of Alumni Relations in GUAA, Class of 79. Since starting this program, we've had wonderful conversations with several different alumni discussing changes at Gallaudet and what the campus looks like today. Remember, this program is for you. It's interesting, I've received comments from numerous alumni as well as some non-alumni saying that this is a great program to learn about deaf history, deaf leaders, and it's all delivered through American Sign Language. If you enjoyed this program and would like it to continue, please share it with your family and friends, either through email or social media. We want the world to know and see this program. Today's episode has 3 parts. The first will be about Gallaudet commencement. Next, we will interview an important alumna, the Honorable Wilma Neuhaut-Druchen. And third, for our Then and Now segment, we'll take a historical look at commencements through the years. I'm excited about this show, and I'd like to now introduce our panelists.
Hello, I'm MJ Bienvenu. I'm a professor here at Gallaudet University in the Department of ASL and Deaf Studies. I'm also chair of the Gallaudet 150th Anniversary Planning Committee. And of course, I'm an alumna of the university, graduating with a BA in 1974 and an MA in 1983.
Hello, I'm Danilo Torres. I am originally from Colombia, South America, and currently work for international relations. I was graduated with my master's degree in 2011 and am a proud alumnus of Gallaudet.
Hello, my name is Laure Ameloot, and I'm from Belgium. I'm soon to be a proud alumna, class of 2013.
You may have noticed that 3 of us introduced ourselves as alumni. However, Laura hasn't graduated yet. She's still a student. We look forward to her joining us as an alum. She'll be graduating soon. Tell us your thoughts on graduation.
Even though I haven't graduated yet, I've still experienced 3 full years here, behind the scenes of graduation. I've worked on setup, planning, and managing things. It's harder than people realize. Here is a video of graduation week, reduced to just a few minutes. Watch and enjoy.
I realize how many things I take for granted when I'm just sitting and watching graduation. I didn't realize how much work went into it. This also makes me think about our faculty. I'd like to ask you, MJ, what does graduation mean to the faculty?
It means a lot to us. I think we all enjoy being together in the back room and seeing each other and catching up on the news. That's usually when we hear the announcements about who's received tenure.
I see the faculty wearing different colors, if you're red or blue or green or purple. What is the purpose of that?
Yes, the color of the gowns are usually based on their university colors, and the hood represents their specific discipline. For example, my degree is from Union Institute and University, so my gown is blue. New York University's is purple, University of Maryland's is red, and we know Gallaudet's colors are buff and blue.
I have kind of a funny story to share about graduation. Back in 2011, when I was getting ready to graduate, I had purchased my cap and gown and tried it on before the day of graduation to make sure that it fit. I hadn't worn one of these kinds of gowns before and couldn't figure out why the sleeves had so much room in them. I assumed that the company had improperly sewn them and was all set to get a pair of scissors and cut them to size. Thankfully, I couldn't find any scissors and never cut the sleeves because I realized on graduation day that the sleeves were supposed to look like that.
You know why? A long time ago, people used to give money to the graduates, so those sleeves were places to hold the money. Too bad they don't do that anymore. I wish they still did it today.
Me too.
I've attended many different graduations, and each has a different commencement address. I think my favorite of all was the 1976 commencement speaker. Do you know who the speaker was? Art Buchwald.
Yes, I remember that.
He was a renowned political humorist and columnist. If you remember, in 1976, it was our 200th anniversary, the American bicentennial. And so he acted as if he were representing the King of England and came on stage wearing a wig. He prefaced his remarks emphatically with the phrase, "You loyal subjects of England," and called the graduating class a bunch of rebels and troublemakers. People in the audience had a good laugh. When he finished those remarks, he removed the wig and became serious. He told everyone that they may not remember what was said, but what was important is that you laughed on your graduation day. It's true. I still remember that.
I have attended some Gallaudet graduations, and you know how they have them set up. There's the stage at the very front of the auditorium, in front of which is the seating for the undergraduates, followed by the graduate students. So on my graduation day, I was of course seated behind the undergrads, and the speaker for my commencement was Gary Malkowski, the well-known deaf Canadian politician. What marked his speech for me that day was how impassioned, forceful, and how grand the delivery of his speech was. It felt like a 10 on the Richter scale. It was so inspiring, although it did go on for a while.
There's so many things that happen or that go on behind the scenes that we don't even know about, like the teleprompter going out. I want to ask Laura, how do you feel about your upcoming graduation?
I'm happy, I'm nervous, but at the same time, I'm ready to go. I'm ready for the new chapter in my life to begin. Yes, Gallaudet will always be my home, and without it, I wouldn't be who I am today. And I wouldn't have made it without so much of the support from faculty, family, and friends, and everyone. I have a few short messages from graduating seniors who want to thank you, the alumni, for all of your support. Let's watch.
Hello, I'm Aldo from Peru. I came to Gallaudet in 2007, but I just didn't have the funds to continue. So I transferred to another school. After some time, I heard that there were scholarships available, and I was excited to come back. I returned to Gallaudet in the fall of 2009 to complete my education. I'll be graduating in May of 2013.
I'm Leanna. When I first entered as a freshman, I had a truly difficult time with academics and in coming to terms with my identity. A scholarship helped me to move forward. I became involved with different organizations and work experiences, which gave me the confidence I have today.
Hi, I'm William Butler. I first entered Gallaudet in 1978, but I wasn't successful. I had to quit. I had to go to work, and I had children, so my life changed. However, I made it back to Gallaudet in 2008. Because of your support, I'm finally able to graduate in May of 2013.
Hi, I'm Melanie. Wow. The scholarship I received from Gallaudet alumni has supported in my studies at school. My goal is to be a deaf education teacher, which I will achieve as I'm graduating in 2013.
Hi, I'm Lindsay. I first came into Gallaudet in 2008 with VR support, and then I found out Gallaudet offered scholarship money, which meant I could finish my studies. Without that support, I would have had to leave school. I never would have graduated. It meant a lot. I really want to thank the alumni for their support.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you, alumni, for everything. So long.
Thank you so much.
Welcome back. I have the great pleasure of introducing you to the Gallaudet graduate who is the subject of our alumni profile. Today, we recognize the Honorable Dr. Wilma Neuhaut-Druchen. In 1999, she not only became the first deaf woman to be elected to the South African Parliament, but the first deaf woman to be elected to any parliament in the world. She was graduated from Gallaudet in 1992 with her bachelor's degree and in 2005 received her master's degree. The deaf communities in South Africa and worldwide hold her in high regard. She remains a member of Parliament and also serves as Vice President of the World Federation of the Deaf. We were fortunate and privileged to have her come and interview with us.
I grew up in Cape Town, which is a city in South Africa. That's where I was raised. If you're familiar with the political history of South Africa, during the period of time in which I was born, the 1960s, as well as the 70s and 80s, we were living under apartheid. So that was a challenge of being deaf and black. We lived with segregation. Deaf schools were also segregated based on skin colour. We had separate schools for whites, for blacks, for coloured students like me, and yet another one for the Indian students. So that was a big challenge. And so too was the level and quality of education. It was best at the white schools, and the black schools had the worst. Quality of education was an additional consideration. I didn't learn about Gallaudet from the School for the Deaf. I'd wanted a higher quality of education at more advanced levels, so I transferred to a mainstream school. And it was the mainstream school that I matriculated from. Then I wanted to go to university. Now, most deaf people in South Africa work in factories. They're in the garment industry. But I didn't want that. I wanted to pursue my education. But I'd never heard of a deaf university. I tried a mainstream university, but with no support services at all. In one of my classes at the deaf school, there was one student who went on to attend Gallaudet University, and that was Lindsay Dunn. He later talked to me about Gallaudet and encouraged me to come. We finally convinced my parents to send me to Gallaudet, but Lindsay was the only person who told me about Gallaudet University. What's funny is that I was making preparations to come to Gallaudet for the fall semester in 1988. And 1988 is also the year that the Deaf President Now protest occurred, and the story was carried on the news. I didn't see any of the coverage, but people told me about it. So I missed the event because I came in the fall of 1988, but I did come to Gallaudet the same year as the Deaf President Now protest. Okay, let's talk about Parliament in South Africa. Some interesting points. For many years in South Africa, we've had a disability organisation called the Disabled People of South Africa, or DPSA for short. Many of the members of DPSA were activists, political activists, during the apartheid period. They'd acquired disabilities through different means, through accidents, through gunshot wounds, they were wheelchair users and the like. DPSA supported the African National Congress, which is my political party. Regardless of their disabilities, these people were still activists and had formed DPSA. So while South Africa was developing a new constitution in 1993 and 94, their interim constitution, DPSA requested that disability be included as a category for protection from discrimination. And then they asked the ANC, because we knew by then that the ANC would become the ruling party, the DPSA asked the ANC if they could have a disabled person as a representative in Parliament. The ANC granted them one position. That person has actually since passed away, and she also left before the end of her term. It's a 5-year term, and it was entirely too much for one person to represent all disabled people. So that was the 1994 election. As we approached the next election in 1999, DPSA asked the ANC for increased representation. They were granted 5 positions on the list. Now, we use the list system. We don't compete or campaign as individuals. Each party has a list of candidates for Parliament, and the number of people on each list who is actually admitted is determined proportionately by the election results. The 5 positions for the disabled community were ranked at the top of this list, above 100 others, which ensured entrance to Parliament. Of the 5 positions, each represented a particular constituency: a physically disabled, blind, partially sighted, and a female blind person. Now, the ANC believes in gender equality, so the 5th position could not go to a male. It had to go to a woman. There was as yet no deaf representative. But DPSA had met with me and knew I worked on deaf-related issues, had seen me give presentations on the subject, so they solicited me, asking me if I wanted to join Parliament. I said, no, I don't. I wanted to focus my efforts on working with deaf people. At that time, I was teaching a leadership camp for deaf youth, and I didn't want to be swayed, but they pleaded with me to fill the 5th position to represent deaf people. That was in October of 1998, and the elections wouldn't even take place until June of 1999, which seemed so far away that I finally said, okay, put me on the list. Never thinking for a minute that the ANC would actually win more than 60% of the vote, but they did. So all 5 of the representatives with disabilities entered Parliament, and that's how I became a Member of Parliament. I was lucky to have parents who never said no. If I wanted to try something, they said, go ahead and try it. That kind of support from parents is crucial. You should be encouraged to give things a try, even if you don't succeed. And for me, as a deaf person, I never give up. I had to convince Parliament that I needed 2 sign language interpreters. I know I could really use 3 or 4 or even 5, but for 2 as a starting place. Can you imagine 1 interpreter working all day long on bills and legal matters, sometimes until midnight? It would just be impossible. So I had to convince Parliament of my case and be able to explain why I need services. Not in an emotional way, but in a calm, factual way. Talking about interpreting services. And I don't give up. I persevere and hope the next generation will too. We can't sit back just feeling sorry for ourselves. We can't do that. We need to keep fighting, keep striving for progress. That's the spirit of DPN, really. You didn't give up either. You kept striving. Even though it was 25 years ago, it was the same spirit. Alumni have an ongoing role. And I believe once an activist, always an activist. We must continue being activists and advocating for the deaf community. I do love to come here. I always say this is my second home, and it's true, it really is. It's so nice to meet people, catch up with old friends and new, to sit on the bus and meet the students, chat about South Africa and what's going on. It's great. It's always lovely to be here.
Wilma was just here recently for the DPN 25th anniversary celebration, and she spoke about the many ways DPN has impacted the international deaf community and the rights of deaf people. It was such a good presentation. Hearing her describe the international impact, we all thoroughly enjoyed it. Although I think many of us are aware of the impact that DPN had, I don't think we really understand its worldwide impact. Wilma's a perfect example of that very thing. I thoroughly enjoyed her presentation.
I'd like to add, Wilma is one of the few alumni who has received 2 awards from the GUAA. Every year, GUAA bestows 6 different awards on Charter Day. Wilma previously received the Outstanding Young Alumnus Award. Then, at a later date, she also received an award which recognizes international service, the EMG Award. For someone to receive 2 awards is quite rare.
That's amazing, Sam. Wilma really is an outstanding example for our alumni. And you know, alumni are so important to Gallaudet. Alumni serve as role models and help us recruit students. We have a short message for you from our Chief Enrollment Officer, who is an alumna herself. Here is Charity Reedy.
As alumni, you may wonder how you can contribute to help Gallaudet. I have 3 ways you can do that. The first is to let Gallaudet take the lead. Just give us your name and contact information, such as your address and email, and Gallaudet will do the rest. Secondly, you have to keep in mind that what you know may be old information. Always check your facts and don't share information that you're not sure of. What you want to do is give accurate information about how people can contact Gallaudet. Thirdly, be sensitive to who you're interacting with, and remember that your experience at Gallaudet may be different from the experiences of that individual. They may have never had an experience in an environment like Gallaudet before. Your job as alumni is just to help them make that connection to Gallaudet, and we'll do the rest. That's how you can contribute as alumni.
Recently, in my introduction, I mentioned that I was chair of the 150th anniversary celebration, and I'm so excited to get started. It will begin in the fall and continue all the way through July of 2014. One of the many things we're going to be doing to celebrate our 150 years of history is to take a look back and understand Gallaudet's significant contribution to the world. I hope you'll be able to join that celebration. Be on the lookout for more information at www.gallaudet.edu/150. Now I'm thrilled to take a look back at Gallaudet's commencement history for our segment, Then and Now.
When I look at all of those photos, the one that really caught my eye was the one of EMG, our first president. The photograph was taken just before he retired at the 1910 graduation ceremony. Displayed above him were the class banners for 1911, 1912, and 1913. In old gym, we have the class banners on display, but the oldest one we have is 1914. The set in that photo would really add to our display.
What struck me was all the different locations. I was lucky to have experienced commencement in 2 different places. I received my BA at the National Cathedral and my MA at the Fieldhouse. It's amazing to see all the different places commencement's been held.
In fact, the commencement has taken place in a total of 9 different locations over the years. Of those 9, the longest run was Chapel Hall. Graduations were held there for more than 80 years. We started using the Fieldhouse in 1982, and commencement has been there ever since.
Honestly, I wish graduation was still held in Chapel Hall. I wish.
A lot of people feel the same way, but it's too small. It only holds about 200 or 300 people, and we have over 1,000 attending. So now I and the others here with me would like to congratulate you on graduating in the class of 2013. Now it is time to close. If you have enjoyed the show, please share it with your family and friends. Let them know about Alumni Now. Of course, we always welcome your feedback. Just email us at alumninow@gallaudet.edu.